$1 million on romance novels, $10 million on a new reality TV show, $200,000 on a party at Paramount Studios. These expenses might sound like extravagant Hollywood expenditures, but those are just three things the U.S. government spent taxpayer money on this year. Republican Senator Tom Coburn released Volume 4 of his government Wastebook this week, detailing 100 instances of what he considers irresponsible spending.
Inside the Wastebook this year is $30 billion of stupid, what I would consider stupid or at least poor judgment when it comes to spending money in a time when we have very little money to spare.
While the Defense Department and other government agencies say there's nothing more to cut, Senator Coburn is telling Congress to think again.
Whether you agree with my opinion or not isn't the issue. The fact is if you look at $700 billion in deficits and almost an $18 trillion debt, some grown-up in the room has to question whether or not we're spending money wisely and effectively.
So what does waste look like? Last year, the government spent nearly $300 million on an unused Army blimp, $50 million on an unfinished parking garage that was started in 1997, $29 million on Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s NASCAR team. The list goes on and on and on. In all, the Wastebook points out nearly $30 billion in money misuse. That's enough to cut the sequestration our country currently faces by 1/3. One sweet spot for cutting, a government program that's meant to protect sugar farmers from seasonal volatility. It allows the sugar farmers to pay back their government loans using, well, sugar. It's a sweet deal that Coburn says wasted $171.5 million in 2013. But the Sugar Alliance argues that government policy forces them to operate this way. Because Mexico has flooded the U.S. market with unneeded, subsidized sugar, oversupplies are near record highs and sugar prices are nearing record lows. Without the minimal safety net that kicked in this year, many U.S. sugar producers would be put out of business, and America would be more dependent on unreliable foreign suppliers for a key food ingredient, and that would be a recipe for disaster. The Sugar Alliance says it's willing to forfeit the loans if the government levels the global playing field. From sugar crops to sugar daddies. In a section called Pimping the Tax Code, he took aim at Nevada's brothels for receiving breaks on business and operating fees. $17.5 million in all, something the owner of the Moonlight Bunny Ranch says is unfair. Dennis argues he already pays his fair share of taxes.
The first thing is I'm the biggest taxpayer in the county. For my 4 brothels in Lyon County, Nevada, I pay $500,000 a year in business license fees.
As for the deductions the women he employs receive?
Nails, hair, a cell phone, a clothing allowance, photographic shoots.
Dennis contends prostitution is like any other business.
Shouldn't a carpenter be able to write off a hammer? These are business expenses. Her business expenses just are a little different.
In the end, Senator Coburn blames Congress and says the only way to stop the waste is to quit electing people that care more about being in Washington than actually fixing it.
The only thing that's going to change it is for the American people to quit sending people up here with a motivation to how do they stay here. That's why term limits is something that has to happen in this country, because I guarantee if you had really strong term limits, the people who would be here would not be the people who are here today.
If not, Senator Coburn warns that this Wastebook could get a lot thicker as politicians raise taxes rather than cut off the lifestyles of the rich and powerful. In the Wastebook capital of the country, Megan Lopez, RT.